argument in the past that, only homeowners pay property taxes. That's the farthest thing from the truth. Every renter pays them too. And so my concern, you go to the Peninsula and Fairbanks and you don't see garbage dropped anywhere. And we don't have a big problem with that here, but I am grateful that it's free in the remote locations, because those would be easier to bury it or burn it or whatever. And they don't have any reason to do that because they can take it in. But, I think the current system, I actually wish, first of all, nothing is free. Nothing in this world is free. And so, we could talk about red and black and all those different things, but if it was free across the board, we would all still pay exactly the same. Actually, that's not true. Those of us in densely populated areas would pay a little tiny bit less, because we wouldn't then be subsidizing the rural areas, and we would make up for it with the mill rate, and it'll all work out in the end. And actually those rural communities would end up having to pay their fair share for refuse. But this is a very complicated situation. We could talk math formulas all day and philosophy, but I guess really at the end of the day, I'm going to support you in this, and you just got to give me your word that when budget season comes around, that we'll sit down and we're going to work through this together, because, we can't, it's tough in government. I don't want to see government picking winners and losers, but again, there are other communities in our state. If I can tell you, if this was going to drop the tonnage, Moki, I wouldn't support it, because everything that I take to the dump, and I feel like I should pay well to take it there, it's all based on tonnage. I take monster trailers from construction sites. And in the past, I didn't support you on that, because I don't feel like I should get a discount. But your typical truck, small, medium, large, those are homeowners. Those are individual families or whatever. That's not construction site type stuff. I'm fine with them giving a discount. It's probably going to cost me some property tax money myself. But, this is almost, I'm telling you guys, we almost need to put together a working group on this moving forward, I think, and discuss ideas. But anyway, I'll stop for now, but that's all I got. Thanks.
So can we have Director Dolan just speak to this? There just seems to be kind of a few, seems misinformation on what an enterprise fund is and how other areas pay for their services.
Terry Dolan, Director of Public Works. Through the Deputy Mayor, I brought you a couple of slides and I slid them underneath your red folder up there. The one on top has got these blue bars on it. Looks like that. And they're also available if anybody in the public wants them. They're on the stand out there as well. The first slide on there shows you the operating gain or loss. And I took those numbers right out of the CAFR all the way back to 2008. So if you want to check my math on it, you can do that. And essentially what this chart is showing you is that the operating gain from the landfill has to reach the red line up there at 2.5 million in order for our revenues to actually cover the full cost of operations. You heard the mayor talk about it in the last 3 times that we had legislation like this come up about how bad a shape the enterprise fund was in when he was an assembly person. And you can see that time frame where the blue lines go below the zero number down in the 2008 to 2012 time frame. We were literally hemorrhaging money out of the enterprise fund because the rates were so low. Not only did they not cover our operating costs, but they didn't cover our capital costs either. And we were losing right around $3.5 million a year on the enterprise fund back in 2010. The second slide, before we go to that, let me point out 2012. You can see we lost almost $500,000 in operating and then another 2.5 million in capital in 2012. And if you flip over to the second slide, it's the slide that's got the picture of a pickup truck on it. That's a diagram published in 2012 for our rates then. So in a year where we were losing almost $3 million or something like that, we were charging for a level pickup load $16. So what's proposed here is significantly lower than that. And is clearly well below what it costs us to dispose of the waste. Just jumping onto the third slide, and this gets after a couple of points Mr. Yunt made and some questions I received from Assemblywoman Nowers. In the notes on the left side there, you can see where I talk about Fairbanks and Kodiak and Kenai. I think, Mr. Yunt, you mentioned Fairbanks and Kenai being free. So all of their waste disposal is paid for using property tax. So there's a mill rate that covers that. So it's not really free. It's just the people pay in a different way. We always get questions from the Assembly about how we compare with other municipalities. It's really difficult to compare ourselves to them because we don't have the same rate structures, but there's a few places where there are, for example, pickup truck rates. And so we collected that data and put it on the slide here for you. You can see for a pickup truck, Anchorage is charging $18 right now. They actually have scheduled, I think, 5 increases in a row over the next 5 years to try and get back to a point where they're revenue neutral. So their numbers are going to be going up. Still well above what's proposed to be charged. You can see Juneau is off the charts there in terms of their costs, although their 6-foot pickup truck cost is right about the same cost that we have in terms of landfilling the material out of a pickup truck of that size. Anchorage is a little bit above us. You see on the right over there, and those yellow ones are the bag rates. They're a little bit above us on the bag rates. So that information is there for your use. At the end of the day, I think what I would tell you is the same thing I told you the last 3 times I was up here, is that disposing of this waste properly is costly. And my recommendation is always going to be that the users pay the fee to dispose of the waste. If we don't do that, if we operate at a deficit, the finance director will have to loan us money out of the area-wide fund. And if we continue to do it, eventually the enterprise fund won't be allowed to operate under the rules that we have to abide by, the finance rules. So that's my pitch, and I'm available for questions.
Assemblymember Sumner.
So through the deputy mayor to Mr. Dolan, what if we were going to charge a flat rate for a pickup truck, what would be your estimate of the rate that would need to be charged to not have a substantial revenue reduction?
So where we were on a pickup truck load generally was right about $41, I believe. And so this is a $31 reduction in the cost. I think the way I explained it to Assemblywoman Nowers when she came by the landfill yesterday was, every time somebody drives a pickup truck through the gate, I'm going to hand them $31. I'm essentially going to put $31 in their pocket that they don't have if they pay what it actually costs to dispose of that waste. And then I'm going to go borrow that money so that I can keep giving pickup truck folks $31 every time they come through the gate. That's what's really happening here if you put a $10 rate in place. We can't dispose of it at that price, not even close to it.
Assemblymember McKee.
I've listened to both parties and I understand what Terry is saying. I also understand what Moki is saying. And I'm going to refer back to Ms. Mauer's comment about another subject, fairness, okay? It's not fair that, in fact, I have to subsidize the rate for the transfer stations out in Talkeetna and Willow. That's unfair, okay? A reduction at $10 may a pickup load may very well cause a deficit here. But we're never going to know unless we do something, okay? And you're coming up on a budget cycle here, and you're going to have a shot to look at this over, let's say, a 3 or 4 month period, okay? And Terry can get up and say, my God, you're breaking me at that point, okay? But until you do something, you really don't know. The idea that, in fact, yes, Fairbanks doesn't have the junk that we do. go out and drive around. You see the signs, the barriers that the borough has put up saying, don't put your junk here, okay? I went out around Big Lake and they have 2 of them out there. So people do cast out their junk. So I think we ought to, and I don't think that Mr. Young or Mr. Sumner are going to, in fact, spend all day hauling pickup loads of junk to get a $10 rate. They're still going to use their trailer, okay? And they're going to pay it exactly like they are. The person that's not going to, that's going to benefit on is probably the person, the homeowner who has a couple of bags of garbage that they want to get out, okay? And they go down and they put it in. As far as the rate structure is a little bit crazy, and and Rob is right. Maybe they ought to look at. I hauled one item out to the junk the other day, a 5 cubic foot expired freezer, $55. That was a charge for one item in the back of a pickup. Okay, so no, I think we ought to give the $10 shot, and if it doesn't work, then adjust it back to what Terry needs to stay in the block.
So if you think the rural areas are underpaying now, give them this $10 pickup. We all have pickups. We will not be paying near our share, and we will not be breaking even. This is irresponsible. We've discussed this before. Assemblymember Young. All right, Assemblymember Nowers.
I think Mr. Two did have his hand up and he hasn't spoken yet, so I'll cede to him, sorry.
Sorry, I'm just going on the order scribbled here for me. Assemblymember 2.
Could I have the borough clerk queue up some photographs that I've taken of the landfill? I went and made a landfill visit the other day. It wasn't a planned visit, it was just a visit. What I'd like with that, let's go right to the front gate if we could. Our monitors aren't working either, Lonnie. No. Yeah, okay. Let's keep moving forward on those photos. I'd like to kind of take them in if I could, in order. Nope. Of the front gate of the landfill. Okay, you're getting close. Come on, one more maybe. Nope, one more maybe. Nope, it missed it. Oh, no, there we go. Okay, so what I would say is I made an unscheduled visit to the landfill. And this is what I seen. I seen all these cars backed up at the scale house waiting to get weighed. So I went ahead and went on the right, went up to the scale house, told them what I was doing, and then move on down a little bit, Lonnie, or move up, wherever how the photo goes. Yeah, up. So you do see all those cars in line, I hope. Okay, I'll stop. This is the 3 dumpster sites where the folks pull up from the scale house and they dump their garbage there. You can only see there's 1 truck in 3 stalls up there. And all those stalls, all those other folks were waiting in line to get up there and dump their trash. So then let's go down a little further. A little further. Okay, stop there. This is a new, okay, yeah, come on. If you can see a dumpster, there's actually 2 dumpsters. That yellow, it's 2 deep. And that orange sign on the left, that's also 2 deep. And that's a ramp, and that's a bunch of concrete barriers. And then it's hard to see, but that's a blue Dodge truck. And what he's doing is dumping C&D, which is construction debris. So now what he has to do is pull up alongside that, pull his tailgate down, pull all that garbage out, throw it in those dumpsters. Well, that sounds okay, but we do have a C&D dump site right down the hill there. And so now what we've done is we said, well, let's try this project, and we're gonna go hire another man. We're gonna have another truck, and then after these containers get full, we're gonna pick those containers up and drive them down the hill and dump them. And by the way, there's other cars down there at the C&D pit dumping their stuff. I don't know what that's about. So then let's go back up. Up, yeah, up more. Up, okay, stop right there. I have certified hundreds of vehicles, heavy construction vehicles. I don't care if they're trailers, I don't care if they're lowboys, I don't care if they're dump trucks, semi trucks, tractors. I have put DOT certifications on them. I mentioned months ago, why do we have a contract out to haul C&D or leachate to Anchorage? We're paying a contractor, I think it was $400,000, almost $500,000 a year to do that. This trailer is sitting down at the landfill. It has 8,680 miles on it. It is brand new. I would love to have that trailer. Brand new brakes, brand new hoses, brand new. This thing is brand new. Why are we not using that? But we're sitting here saying how broke we are and how we can't give the citizens a fair shake on their garbage. I talk to a lot of citizens, and the people that get garbage service now, you can give it to them free in their truck, and they're not coming. But the people that are making $40,000 and $60,000 a year and raising kids, that's going to make a heck of a difference on their budget. Why can't we help them? That's what I want to do. I don't think there's anybody in here that's going to all of a sudden jump in their pickup truck and haul the trash down there. I'm talking about where it makes a difference in the folks' budget. So this is what I seen when I went to the landfill. There's a lot of room to save money if they want to. I was opposed of the asphalt. When I went down and looked at the asphalt, I'm still opposed to the asphalt. They have it going down to the cell site, and they got it going around the leachate tank. I mean, I live on a gravel road. Most of us do. So there's a lot of room for savings. Thank you. That's all I got to say. I want this to pass.
Assemblymember Sumner. Assemblymember Yunt.
Thank you. I wanted to clarify earlier, and I should apologize to Ms. Bovee. I wasn't trying to say that it's unfair. The more densely populated communities are subsidizing, but I didn't mean areas where you were still paying to take your refuse. And I don't think that is in much of your district. I think a lot of people do have to pay to still take it. I was talking much more remote where we don't actually employ Matsuboro employees to work the sites because they would bring in less trash per year than it would cost for us to even operate them. So I wanted to clarify that. I sure wasn't trying to disrespect anybody in your district or anything like that. Really, at the end of the day, it's all going to cost the same. If we got to make up for this in other ways, we'll figure that out. Like Mr. McKee said, and then we'll figure that out, or we'll up the rate back to wherever it needs to be to make it work. If anything, this is going to hurt large scale contractors, and this is going to help small scale homeowners. And me being a large scale contractor, and I'm okay if it hurts me, it doesn't matter to me. I think we should try it out for a little bit and regroup in a quarter, possibly about 2 quarters to put us in the budget season, but in a quarter. And, I want to be clear too with the director of the department. I actually think you're doing a great job. I'm not trying to, by me supporting this is not me trying to say that we need to have drastic changes in that area. It's not that at all. This is simply just basic math. They do pay for it in other ways in those other communities. To me, it seems like a more fair way to do it than we're doing it now. Just based on the fact that there are some of our residents that don't have to pay and many that do. And that doesn't sit well with me. I think we should all carry the weight equally. So that's all I got. Thank you.
Assemblymember Nowers.
Thank you. would note that the things Assemblymember 2 were talking about is the operation of the landfill, which you disagree with. That's not what we're debating here. And I've actually spent a fair amount of time at the landfill because it's in District 2. I spent a couple hours on a busy summer weekend and I watched the traffic flow there. And they do a good job of moving traffic through. I watched it for 2 hours and the most they ever had at the line was 4 cars. And that's been a lot of work on the landfill's part to be able to channel that traffic through. So if you want to talk about the operation of the landfill, let's talk about that. But that's not what's before us. If you think you can save money with the operation, bring something like that forward. To Mr. McKee's point, I agree with you that everybody should pay. I think everybody at this table would say, as much as possible, everybody should pay their fair share. They use more of a service, they pay more for that service. They use less, they pay less. And it sometimes can be really difficult to do that. Your issue with the rural versus urban, I agree, but this actually takes it, as Assemblywoman Bovee noted, the opposite direction. So if you're trying to equalize that, why are you doing that? And I cannot get over how unfair this system would be. Like right now, you have a system that you could go out and measure 1 cubic yard. If you're there, you could say, I want you to measure that amount of garbage. Now you're putting in a system that somebody can come in with 3 times the garbage that I come in with, and you're going to charge them the same amount. And I cannot understand how that makes any sense. And I guess I have a question for Mr. Young. Like, people look to us to be smart, to make smart decisions. So you're willing to make this happen without the analysis instead of doing the analysis and then figure out a system?
In all fairness, the reason I'm willing to do that is because the system's more unfair now. And so there are people who pay 0 for trash in our borough. And that's simply just because there would be less money spent where they take their trash than we wouldn't create enough revenue to hire employees. And I can understand it would actually cost us money to employ those areas. But because of that, there are a number of, and I would actually like to know that because I don't know off the top of my head, but there are a certain amount of sites in the Matsu Borough where it's 100% free, just simply because there's not enough people out there to justify manning the sites. With that being said, that is an unfair system. It is. There's no debating that. It means we pay and they don't. I don't need an analysis to know that that's not fair, right? Like so by no means am I trying to undercut the department or anything like that. I can just tell you there are people in our community, in our borough, I should say, maybe not this community here, that don't pay. We do pay. If nobody paid, we would make up for it with mill rate. And everybody would pay equally because renters and homeowners pay equally. I've heard the argument multiple times in the past that renters don't pay, and that's not true, because if we have to increase the mill rate, which I don't know that we won't know for 3 months, but if we did, then renters pay as well. So actually, honestly, mathematically speaking only, this is more fair. If it's unfair to anybody right now, current system as of today, if say this passes, it would only be to contractors.
I have no idea who's not paying for garbage. We just talked about how renters assume the costs. This
And they do.
may have an unfair system, but you're making it more unfair. Right now, you can do it by the cubic yard and you pay by the cubic yard. Now you've got a system where people pay the same rate for different amounts. So if you're trying to get to fair, this is going the opposite direction. And I think as a government, we don't just throw things out if we can do an analysis. I mean, how many times, Mr. McKee, have you said, I want to see the numbers? So we're just going to go ahead and just pick a number out of the blue. We have a system in place because we used to do by pickup truckload. So there's probably a reason we ended up where we are. And let's be smart about these decisions we make and not go more unfair and just like, oh, we'll see how that works out. That just makes no sense to me at all. And I can't believe the other people around this dais would support that.
Assemblymember Hale, are you on the phone?
Yes, I am. Thank you. I'd like to apologize for being late. I was at work way up back in the mountains outside of Healy, so we just got back in cell service range.
Okay, so Assemblymember Hale entered the meeting at 8:37. All right, we are discussing, what's the ordinance? Resolution 2120, sorry. 101. I've lost it. 101, the landfill pickup rate currently. I just want to make a comment. I think the way that the fee schedule is written currently encourages people to regularly dispose of their trash. I mean, there is an economic benefit to bringing it 2 bags at a time. I really don't need to encourage my neighbors to collect that, and in the hopes of, they absolutely will. I will have pickup trucks with trash everywhere. Assemblymember Sumner.
So a couple of things. I think it was mentioned that some places are free. I know for a fact Glacier View, that doesn't charge for trash. Not sure Lake Louise maybe, but Glacier View for certain. But I really think that this is, and I object to putting the garbage or the landfill cost onto the mill rate. I think that's about the worst possible thing that we could do. It's not going to reduce the cost. It's just going to hide the cost. And if you think that right now the core area is subsidizing garbage costs, well, that will be a much larger subsidy as the folks outside of the core area demand more and more services, and without seeing the effects of that cost, the people in the core area will be soaked more and more. We pay the vast majority of the property tax from this area right here. So I mean, I would object to that in the strongest terms. I think that moving towards that kind of a system is a terrible idea. But could Director Dolan perhaps refresh my memory on how do we currently charge for trash at the transfer station and like Big Lake, say? Like what's the per bag charge, and what's the, I guess it's by cubic yardage out there?
We do have the bag rate there, and we also have the cubic yard rate. And so essentially what happens when someone pulls up with a truck is there's a discussion between the gate operator and the driver over how big the load is, and they agree to set a price for that. They'll agree, say that it's 2 cubic yards or 3 cubic yards or whatever it is, and they'll set the price. If they don't reach an agreement, the gate operator will take a tape measure out and measure the load with the driver. And once they have the mathematics, then they'll agree on a price. If they can't agree on a price, then the resident is welcome to haul it to a place where we can weigh it, like Central Landfill or some other location where it can be accepted.
Did you have more, Assemblymember Sumner?
No, I'd like to call a question. I think that we've had this question quite a few times.
Objection to calling the question. All right, we have an objection. Let's vote on calling the question.
Assemblymember Hale.
Yes.
It has failed with Assemblymember Nowers, Yunt, and Bovee. Excuse me, let me say this the other way. It has failed because it takes 5 votes. With Assemblymember Sumner, 2, McKee, and Hale in support.
So we are continuing discussion.
Correct.
Assemblymember 2, did you have any comments? Assemblymember Yunt.
Thank you. Through the deputy mayor to Director Dolan, I just wanted to ask one more. If you could please let us know exactly how many different sites in the entire borough that don't charge. Appreciate that.
I believe there's 3,
Okay,
2 up the Glen Highway and 1 on the Denali Highway.
okay.
They're in areas where there is no other trash service option. They're relatively low volume. But in terms of the per cubic yard or per ton rate to receive that waste, it is expensive.
Yep.
The site on the Denali Highway is a 12 to 15-hour round trip to go up and collect those containers. So.
Yeah. Thank you, sir, and I appreciate that. And as to what I was talking about earlier, and if anybody ever wants to sit down and do mathematical formulas with me, I'd love to, but in all fairness, that's not fair. So, is how Kenine Fairbanks doing it the right way to do it? Maybe, maybe not. How we're doing it, maybe, maybe not, but it's not gonna change my opinion on how I'll vote tonight. I would actively participate in any working group going forward if anybody wants to sit in on that or do that, if it ever comes to that. But again, I just wanted to point out, in all fairness, that's not fair. So that's why I support this evening.
So it would be fair to charge everyone to dispose of their trash, but I cannot wrap my mind around hiring a borough employee to sit up there to collect someone's $2 bag fee when just the population up there would not support it. So it may not be fair, but it certainly makes financial sense. Assemblymember Sumner.
I move to amend the resolution by replacing all occurrences of $10 with $30.
Any discussion on the amendment? You want to speak to it?
And I guess I'll speak to it. So I guess this is sort of splitting the between what our break even was and the $10 flat rate. I think this is kind of a bad idea, but at least we wouldn't be losing as much revenue that way, but you'd still be able to get a flat rate on a pickup truck, I guess.
So we do have a flat rate currently, correct? It's $41? Okay. No? It's just per yard?
So it translates to the cubic yard rate for a pickup truck, and of course they vary, but it's right in the neighborhood of 3 cubic yards.
But it would be dependent on the size of the pickup bed.
It's dependent on the volume of the waste.
Right.
But generally, a flat load in a pickup truck holds 2 to 3 cubic yards.
Okay.
So we normally charge probably 3 cubic yards for that, unless it's not quite full.
Okay, thank you. Stephanie, Assemblymember Nowers.
Thank you. I appreciate the amendment, always thinking about these things. I can't support this either because there's no justification for it. Are we bringing in too much to our enterprise fund? I haven't seen any of the proposers give a justification for that. Again, like, what is the correct amount to be out there? So if we want to have a discussion on that and then come back with a system that makes sense, let's do that. But let's not just throw something out there that takes a system that is somewhat unfair and makes it more unfair. So I'm going to have to oppose that amendment.
Assemblymember 2.
I'd like to call for the question again. Huh? Wait. Okay.
Is
Let's
there,
end it.
is there an objection to calling the question? On the amendment?
Yeah.
There is an objection to calling the question on the amendment. So let's vote on calling the question.
Assemblymember Hale,
Yes.
it has failed with Assemblymember Hale, Sumner, Nowers, and Bovee in support. Call the question.
Is there any further discussion?
Takes 5.
Assemblymember McKee.
Look, And I think in answer to Assemblyperson Nauer's last explanation, look, what makes this just a little bit different for budget items is we're actually taking money every time from a borough resident that comes in. And those borough residents have differences in income, substantial differences. We are right now undergoing a transformation as a country in economics, just in inflation. Here in the Matsu Valley, in the last 3 weeks, the price of steak at Three Bears has gone up $2.10 a pound. Okay, there are a lot of other items that have gone up. Virtually everything has gone up. Every time I fill my diesel rig, it's more. Well, that's fine. But what about the person who, in fact, the single mom, okay? Why shouldn't she get $10 on it? And so that we can see how it comes out. Should she pay exactly the same rate as Mr. Sumner or Mr. Young? Of course not. So the idea, keep in mind what we are doing every time somebody goes to that landfill, that resident is taking money out of their pocket and handing it over to the borough. It's kind of an unusual circumstance. It doesn't happen that much elsewhere in the borough. People don't come in and throw money at everybody in the borough. So I think it is different. And I think it's worth a try, the $10. And I agree with Mr. Yan. We try it for 3 months and the budget's coming around again. Believe me, Mr. Dolan will have all kinds of numbers, I'm sure, and they will be valid and we will be able to look at, you will be able to look at them and to make a decision then as to whether it's a bad idea or not.
Any further discussion on the amendment to change the rate to $30? Assemblymember Nauers.
I don't have to speak to that, but I will speak to the main motion again.
Okay, I would just like to address one of the things that Assemblymember McKee said. We're not proposing a sliding scale here. It's not going to be a fee based on ability to pay. We have to charge a rate based on the cost to provide this service. We do have an option, the bag rate, that is reasonable, and we lowered that rate this year. So I do not feel that it is cost prohibitive for a single mother to dispose of trash. Are we ready to vote on the amendment to change the rate to $30?
Yeah, I have checked. I want to see you vote.
All right, so we're going to vote on the amendment to change the rate to $30 for a level pickup.
Assemblymember Hale,
Yes.
it has failed with Assemblymember Sumner and Hale in support.
Any further discussion on the original resolution?
I call the question.
You have to recognize him
Yep,
first.
I'll take it back if she wants to.
Deputy Mayor.
Well, he wasn't, correct? Okay, Assemblymember Nauers.
Thank you, Ms. Reedy. You know, I'm all for lower rates if we can justify it and you make it across the board and be fair. The thing about the single mom example, she's probably not driving the big pickup truck. She's driving the little car. So she doesn't actually benefit from this, or the single dad, if we're going to be fair across the board. And then you, again, have put in a system, like if you think we can do lower rates, do that across the board, but don't create a system that is more unfair, where people are paying for a person using 3 times as much of the service. In any business that you've ever run, have you given somebody 3 times as much service and charged them for the single service? Like, it makes no sense. And I really just, I know I've hit this the dead horse, but I think it's on us as a body to make good informed decisions. So if we want to take a look at this, let's take a look at it and then come with a rate structure, not create something that's more unfair just to throw something out there. So I'd really urge turning this down for the second time again.
Assemblymember Hale, did you want to comment?
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I was prepared to, by my count, standard 6-foot bed, level across the top, it's approximately 2 yards. I was prepared to support the $30 a yard. I'm not prepared to support Ken. Thank you.
Thank you. Assemblymember Two.
So if you have if you have garbage service, you pay per can for that service. If that can is half full or if it's all the way full, you pay the same price. And if you have a dumpster, whether that dumpster is one bag in it or if it's full, you pay the same price. That is how it works, just so you know.
Any further discussion?
Okay, I call the question again.
Any objection to calling the question? Let's vote on Resolution 21-101.
Assemblymember Hale,
No.
it passed with Assemblymember Hale, Nowers, and Bovee opposed.
Thank you. There's no unfinished business. There are no vetoes. Madam Clerk, would you please read the introductions into the record?
Introduction for public hearing on October 19th is ordinance 21-100, ordinance 21-101, ordinance 21-102 with accompanying resolution 21-106, and I missed one of the resolutions, 21-104, ordinance 21-104, and that's it.
Some of the members, Sumner.
Madam Deputy Mayor, didn't somebody pull AM 21-105? I'm sorry, I wasn't here for that, but I thought that had.
They removed it completely off
It was
the agenda.
completely removed.
Okay, sorry.
No, good. Assemblymember Nowers, can you move the introductions, please?
I move to introduce the legislation as read into the record by the clerk
Any
and set the
discussion?
public hearings for October 19, 2021.
Sorry. Any discussion or objection? Hearing none, the legislation is introduced. Assemblymember Nowers, please move the vacancy report.
I move to confirm the mayor's recommendations as follows: wastewater and septic advisory board, resignation of William Knoll.
Is there any objection? Hearing no objection, the vacancy report is approved. There's no new business. There's no referrals. There's no reconsideration. It's time for staff comments. Mr. Attorney,
No comments.
Mr. Brown.
I'll be short, but I wanted to clarify one point tonight when we talked about timber. Because there was some testimony that kind of talked about this idea of additional chipping. The Assembly talked about strategic priorities in February, and specifically even going back to October 20. When I first got here, I looked at that list of strategic priorities, and wildfire risk reduction was a priority. That is why we brought forward the regulations for timber. It had nothing to do with the borough raising revenue or trying to imply that there's value in the timber. It was simply to chase that predominantly. So when we talked about that, we sat down with staff across the board, DES, community development, public works, and said, what can we do potentially differently than we're doing now to try to make progress on this front? That's what led to the bringing forward of these changes to the regulations tonight. I just wanted to clarify that because I don't want to get folks to thinking this idea about repealing these regulations had anything to do with us trying to raise revenue. This really was to address an assembly priority around wildfire risk reduction. So I just wanted to clarify that. I heard some comments tonight that folks might try to connect dots and imply that maybe this had something to do with making it more plausible for the borough to make a deal on a timber sale or something. And that's not what drove bringing this forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk. Assemblymember Hale, do you have any comments?
Just apologies for being late again. Thanks.
Assemblymember McKee.
Just one thing, I was a little bit surprised to hear we've got another chipping operation on the horizon, but that begs a question, okay? They can't load anything out on a ship until we get the conveyor belt fixed, and the port folks have told us that it will take at least $500,000 to get the conveyor fixed. So it looks like to me that things are kind of up in the air there. And I won't be here for you to resolve it, but it'll be interesting to read about it in the newspapers.
Thank you. Assemblymember two.
Well, I think we did a great thing by lowering the garbage to $10. I'm not sure about putting out, I think we put people out of business in Talkeetna on the balloon. I think that's what happened tonight. I'm not sure, but I think that's what happened. If that's what happened, I'm really not happy about putting people out of business.
Assemblymember Young.
I'm ecstatic that we reworked those timber regulations. I don't think we're gonna wind up huge exporters of, well, we don't even have any high dollar lumber left. It's all rotted. So that's the truth. It's of no value for board feet anymore, I assure you. So, but I know wildfires are a major concern of mine, and I'm glad that we're finally gonna be able to open up the market, hopefully to some chipping. George brings up some very valid points, and we will have to work through that in the future. I am grateful that we've got the manager that we do on board, because I'm very confident he'll be able to figure out a way to do that. So thank you.
Assemblymember Sumner.
I don't have any comment. Thank you.
Assemblymember Nowers.
Thank you. Just one comment on the attorney's report on the opioid settlement funds. If you kind of do the math on that, it's a very small amount that would go to the borough on a yearly basis. And I just know there's been some discussions about, rather than put a drab of money here and a drab of money there that you can't do too much with, doing some work on a statewide basis and keeping it there. So I know those discussions are going to go forward, and I kind of hope that's part of the discussion, using that money in the way that makes the most sense. I do appreciate the thought that's being put into the infrastructure package and ideas for what we might be able to do. I think we could have a really healthy discussion about that. One other thing I think about is sewer and water extension in the core area. We got a lot of it is not served by sewer and water, and the biggest impediment to that has been cost. But if you want to increase density, you really have to start looking down that road. So I just throw that not as a suggestion necessarily, but just there's a lot of good ideas out there, and having projects in the hopper will help us moving forward. And then I guess I'm just really frustrated and disappointed to see us move forward with the landfill rates with no justification. No justification for it at all. I think it's on us to bring that forward. Why are we doing things? And we just decide, I mean, if we were going the opposite way, if we were raising rates, people around this table would be raising holy hell about the numbers. So I think you have to make your case for things. And I think it's a really bad precedent for us to just decide this is, we're just going to do it because we're going to do it. So I obviously lost that vote, but I think it really, as a body, it's on us to be able to justify our decisions with numbers that are out there. In this case, there are numbers that are out there. you know, I'm just happy Palmer won the potato bowl. So Rob's going to take me to lunch and I'm going to soak him.
Thank you. I do want to address the Talkeetna balloon. That business venture never materialized. And should the opportunity arise again, no pun intended, they just need a permit. I mean, we're not saying they can't do it. There just needs to be some public process involved. So I'm pleased that that passed. As far as the timber salvage and the timber transportation, I think it's fair to say that I can speak to wildfire danger as well or better than anyone else sitting up here. I look at burned trees out my window every day. My neighbor's home's burned. I absolutely understand the wildfire risk. I also want to go on record and say the Sockeye wildfire had nothing to do with the beetle kill. It was black spruce. And that was prior to a lot of the dead standing white spruce that we're currently dealing with. I guess I'm uncomfortable with the fact that we have community councils in the area most likely impacted, and road service area advisory boards and the transportation advisory board that brings us concerns. We have an assembly representative in that district, and you know, you guys are really good at lip service. You know, we'll just, you know, let the assembly representative make the decisions for their area. But with something like this, I mean, you didn't even listen. So I really do hope that, you know, if we do get any contracts, that the public does have an opportunity to comment on their transportation concerns. I think the public process is very important, and I think we kind of let them down. And so I feel bad about that. And that is all I have. So if there's no objection, we will adjourn at 9:07 p.m. Thank you, everybody.